What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Vegas 115, Moicano versus Duncan, and this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. I can't even lie, man. This card on paper is looking really rough. And I feel like on paper, Anthony Smith, it's one of the worst cards of all time, man. Now, having said that, a lot of the Apex events normally end up being very entertaining, so let's hope that that is the case for this card. Now, there are some fights that I am looking forward to, some prospects that I'm very excited to see compete, so I guess that's the good news. But on paper, this card is looking really rough. But without further ado, let's rock and roll right into this thing. Our first fight of the night, we got Dione Barbosa versus Melissa Gatto. I'm picking Dione Barbosa to get this thing done, and I'll say by decision. Now, for me, it really comes down to the fact that I just feel like Barbosa is the more well-rounded fighter, and that's what we've seen throughout her career. She's got a solid ground game, really good jiu-jitsu, solid striking on the feet, good boxing, good kicks. That front kick up the middle, I feel like, is going to be a good weapon for her in this fight. And I feel like if Melissa can stuff the takedowns and turn this into a kickboxing fight, that would probably favor her to where maybe she's able to outscore Barbosa. But we've seen from Melissa in a lot of her fights, while the kicks are really good, we saw that in her last fight against Vidal, was able to rip some nasty shots to the body. We see her accept playing the bottom position a little bit too much. And she's got good submissions off of her back. She's got a really good guard. But I don't think that that's going to be enough to get it done against Barbosa, who we've seen since the Contender Series getting a nice submission, beat Karakate, which is a solid win, did lose to Miranda Maverick, who's a solid fighter, was able to get a submission. And I thought she won this fight against Karine Silva. And what we've seen, from Gatto, she's had a little bit of an inactive career, but when she does compete, she's a ton of fun to watch. Lost to Tracy Cortez, which isn't a bad loss. Lost to Ariane Lipski de Silva, not a great look. And then we've seen, like I said, rips good kicks to the body, very good striker. So if she could keep it on the feet, I think she could outscore Barbosa, definitely possible. But I'm going to side with Dione here. She's got a good ground game. I think she'll be in the top position, winning minutes, can also threaten with submissions of her own. And I think on the feet, while Melissa may have a little bit of an edge, especially with the kicking, I think Barbosa's boxing is a little bit better to where she could exploit that when it comes to the striking. But I think her grappling is a step ahead. Gatto will look to play guard. I'm going to go Barbosa to land some shots on the feet, but win minutes on the deck. So give me Barbosa here by decision. Next, we got Azamat Bekoev versus Tresean Gore. I'm picking Azamat Bekoev, man, and I think he's going to get this done early, and I think he's going to get a first-round knockout over Tresean Gore. And this loss that Azamat was getting kind of clowned for, right, because I think he was a pretty big favorite, if I remember correctly, coming into this fight against Yusri Belgaroy. We now see how good Yusri is, right? He's got the Glory kickboxing background. There were questions about his takedown defense coming into the UFC. Well, Azamat Bekoev got destroyed by Yusri, but Yusri just destroyed Mansour Abdul Malik, who's a hyped-up prospect with a good grappling game as well. Azamat Bekoev, to me, just because he lost to Yusri doesn't mean this guy isn't good. He's got good wrestling, good submission game. He's got power in his hands, a little bit predictable on the feet, does get a little ooga-booga with the technique, throwing a little bit windmill-esque to where that could potentially get him in some trouble against Tresean Gore, who does have some nasty leg kicks, does have pretty solid striking, and I think that he's the more technical striker, but it's not good enough to get it done, man. Let's just cut through the BS with Tresean Gore. Came off of the Ultimate Fighter, seemed like he had a little bit of promise. You're getting put out by Cody Brundage. Red flags are going off. Submitted Josh Frem, with a guillotine. Antonio Tricoli, who's just a guy that shouldn't even be in the UFC. Got put out by Marco Tulio, and most recently, this was the performance to me where I picked Vannata to get this done. He made Rodolfo Vieira look like he turned the corner and is thinking about becoming just a Glory kickboxer or something. Vieira was tagging him up on the feet with just simpleton's boxing skills on the feet, man. It's just a terrible look. Gore's got some power. We've seen his takedown defense has historically been all right. His striking, he basically just waits. You go, I go, you go, I go. Very Dutch-style sparring cadence to Tresean Gore, man. I think he's going to get destroyed by Bekoev. We've seen throughout his career, coming over from LFA, destroyed Zachary Reese, destroyed Ryan Loader. I get he lost to Yusri. Yusri would destroy Tresean Gore. I think Bekoev pressures the heck out of Gore right away, puts the power on him. He can mix in the grappling as well. I think he goes out there and puts him away early with a massive right hand that drops Gore and gets him out of there. I feel like if Gore wins, he's going to go for another guillotine, and maybe he could pull off a Hail Mary if Azamat Bekoev leaves his head on the outside shooting for a takedown. Be curious to see what Bekoev's confidence is coming into this fight after getting knocked out, to where he kind of had all this confidence and stuff. So something, to keep an eye on, I guess. But Bekoev, to me, is clearly the better fighter. I think Tresean Gore seems like he's a little bit on the way out of the UFC at this point. He seems like he has some solid striking, but he doesn't open up enough, is way too hesitant, and I feel like Bekoev will just kind of bully him around in there. He's got that kind of style. I think he takes advantage of Gore being too hesitant. Give me Bekoev, massive right hand to land, and I'll put him away with some follow-up shots on the ground. Next, we got Hailey Cowan versus Alice Pereira. If anyone tells you that they know who's going to win this fight, I have a hard time believing them, because this, to me, is just a terrible fight. It's just a horrible fight. It's between two women that just, what do we say here? I mean, what am I supposed to break down? I mean, Alice Pereira's got all these finishes to where you're like, oh, yeah, she's knocked people out. Woohoo. Comes into the UFC and Monster Rendon is walking you down and outscoring you and putting you on the back foot. Like, what do I do here, man? Like, I don't know. And Alice, sure on the feet, you talk about ooga booga. She starts slapping these wild shots all over the place. But I guess the good news is her striking is somewhat dangerous, to where we've actually seen her land some solid shots and put some of her opponents away. Her ground game, I got questions. We haven't seen too much of it. I think it seems like it's possibly some sort of weakness. But I feel like the UFC is trying to build her up, because she is kind of a solid striker, even though it's sloppy and all over the place. She's only 20 years of age. So she's someone that's going to improve, and we see with these younger fighters, they tend to get better by quite a margin from fight to fight. At least I would hope, because this fight was, 6 months ago? I hope she's made quite a few improvements from 6 months ago. She has a bad habit of just backing straight up. She doesn't stand in the pocket and try to let her shots go a lot. I mean, has a bad habit of just backing up, throws a combination, retreats. It's very bizarre, and she just accepts being put on the back foot, which Hailey Cowan, she hasn't really done much impressive either. I mean, a submission loss, finding a couple submissions, but that was, almost 4 years ago, man. Back-to-back losses to Jamie Lynn Horth and Nora Cornholio, the great Cornholio, but these aren't bad losses. I mean, I think both of these women beat Alice Pereira, but getting subbed by the great Cornholio, that ain't a great look, man. And I know that, Nora, the great Cornholio's got some sneaky tricks up her sleeve, but not that sneaky. And so to be fair, the more I think about it, both of these fighters would destroy Alice Pereira. So we got to talk about that. But I'm not impressed with Hailey Cowan whatsoever. I'm not impressed whatsoever. I'm not impressed with Alice Pereira. We got a coin around here. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'll go Alice Pereira here to get this one done by a decision with unbelievably low confidence. I'm being honest, man. What do you want me to be like? Yeah, man, Alice Pereira's getting it done, dog. I haven't seen anything from either one of these women that's impressive. I just haven't. I just think, with Pereira, she just, will wing a bunch of shots out there. It'll look better than the judges. She backs up too much in a straight line, throws a combination, retreats to the octagon side. Maybe Cowan pushes her up against the fence, stalls her up against the octagon side, maybe gets some takedowns, exploits a bad ground game. I don't know. This fight is terrible. I'm going with Alice Pereira by volume and Looney Tunes style of power striking on the feet to get it done. There's the breakdown. Hope you enjoyed it. Next, we got another one, man. Just keep them coming. Lando Vannata versus Darrius Flowers. I had to go into a time machine and travel way back in time to remember who Lando Vannata even is. And I'm joking. I remember who Lando Vannata is, but casual, man. I thought that he was not even in the UFC anymore. I didn't think that we would ever see Vannata fight again. This dude has not fought in almost 3 years, and he got outscored and picked apart by Daniel Zellhuber, who has looked like absolute dog shit his past few fights. But to be fair, Bob Green and Michael Johnson, two OGs, the old heads that are holding it down, man. But still, Zellhuber, bad, just not good. And Vannata kind of gets a participation trophy to a degree, right? From having a competitive fight in moments with Tony Ferguson, having him in some trouble back in the day, but I think I was at diapers at that time, man, when Lando Vannata was out here looking impressive, because even these wins, beating Yancy Medeiros, 6 years ago it was a solid win, to be fair. Medeiros is a beast. Gets outscored by Bob Green. Mike Grundy split decision 5 years ago. That's the last win. That's the last win, getting subbed by Charles Jourdain, who's actually pretty good. And then Daniel Zellhuber hasn't looked good. I honestly think Daniel Zellhuber could beat Darius Flowers. That's where I'm at this point. Like, Vannata has not fought in a while, but what we've seen from Lando is he is decently well-rounded, can mix up the stances, give you a lot to kind of think about, will stay busy with the hands, he'll mix in some kicks. I think he's just a better overall fighter here. Even though he hasn't fought in a while, I mean, he's 34 years of age, and I feel like, he's been around the game in some capacity, I would imagine. So I'm going to go Lando Vannata to get this done by a decision, but I feel like a lot of this is, one, Vannata, from what I've seen throughout his career, he's been around for a while, he at least has had moments to where Darius Flowers has had, like, 0 moments. I mean, had the slam on the Contender Series where it's like, whoa, man, look out for Darius Flowers. Nobody was saying that. I'm joking. But, getting submitted by Jake Matthews, solid opponent, outscored by Michael Johnson, who's good, and got subbed by Evan Elder. So I don't know with Darius Flowers. I see moments to where he's got some power. He'll let things go a little bit. He'll get a little bit chaotic, but I just think he's very predictable. And if he doesn't knock out Vannata, I just think he's going to get outscored. And I don't think Flowers is just really going to out-grapple Lando, because we've seen Lando's got a well-rounded ground game. I'm going to go Vannata here. Again, I don't know really how you could have confidence in this pick either. A guy that hasn't fought in a while, another guy that's rather inactive that hasn't fought in a while, that has shown F all in the UFC. This is a crap fight, man. I'm picking Lando Vannata, though, to get it done. It might be kind of entertaining because it'll be sloppy and kind of all over the place, but I'm going Lando Vannata. Had to go back into the time machine to remember who this guy was. Didn't think he was in the UFC anymore. And, I guess a participation trophy, dropping Tony Ferguson quite a bit, and going to a split decision with Mike Grundy, who I don't even know who that is. I have people, casual, man. And then beat Yancy Madero 6 years ago, which is a solid win. I've seen more from him than I have for Flowers. This is taking too long on the breakdown already. I'm going Vannata by just craftiness. All right. Alessandro Costa versus Stewart Nicoll. I'm picking Alessandro Costa all day long, and I think he's going to end up knocking out Stewart Nicoll probably in the second round. Stewart Nicoll. You talk about when those fans are out there, they're real hardcore, and they were watching the tape on Stewart Nicoll. They're like, dude, Stewart Nicoll, he's just one of these guys. You got to watch out for the pace, the grappling. He's coming out of Australia, man. Look out, dog. He's got pressure. He's got pace. He's got a ground game. This dude doesn't have anything at the UFC level. I haven't seen one moment in any of his UFC fights to tell me this guy is remotely somewhat UFC caliber. Got dominated in a sense by Jesus Aguilar, dove headfirst into a guillotine. And then, to be fair, I mean, actually, these are decent opponents. Jesus Aguilar and then Lucas Rocha is actually pretty good. I mean, Stewart Nicoll got picked apart in that fight. Stewart Nicoll's not good, man. I'm sorry. He's not. Maybe he goes out here and somehow pulls off the performance of a lifetime and is just able to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Costa. Maybe Stewart Nicoll has been training, nonstop with the striking, and somehow JDM's boxing is rubbing off on him or something. I don't know, man. Like, Stewart Nicoll is not good. I'm sorry, he's not. His ground game is all right, to where if he could get the fight there and continue to mat return and put the pressure on you, like, that's the way to win this fight. Smudge Costa up along the octagon side, drag him down, just kind of be annoying and a nuisance, but it's not happening. Alessandro Costa is by far the better striker. He's got solid striking, with the boxing. His leg kicks are good. I could see him battering the lead leg of Stewart, making him a stationary target, more of a sitting duck, to where the boxing will open up even more. And Stewart Nicoll's striking defense is awful, right? He's not going to defend the kicks well. And I think Costa, again, if you attack the lead leg on a grappler, it's going to make it a lot harder for them to step in and shoot. So I think he's going to take away the base of Stewart Nicoll. And what we've seen from Costa, I mean, finishing Jimmy Flick, right? Loses to Steve Erceg, loses to Amir Albazi. I mean, this is solid opposition. Stopping Kevin Borjas, that's a good win. Right, and then most recently losing to Alden Correa. Alden Correa is for real, man. That guy is a tactician and a savage on the feet. He would dust Stewart Nicoll. So I'm going Costa. I feel like he easily wins this fight, man. If he doesn't get a stoppage, I'd be kind of surprised, but I think he's just going to, either way, he'll outscore Stewart Nicoll. He's got good takedown defense. He has a slick submission game as well. He is literally better at everything than Stewart Nicoll, maybe than just straight wrestling. This isn't a wrestling match. Alessandro Costa will destroy Stewart Nicoll in this fight, and I think he puts him away via TKO. Battering the leg, mixing in the boxing, I just think he destroys Stewart Nicoll. And even if Nicoll does get the takedowns, we've seen that Nicoll is susceptible to being submitted, dove head first into a guillotine. I know Aguilar's got a good guillotine, but I think Costa's ground game is slicker. So give me Alessandro Costa. I think he's just way better. Next, we got Thomas Petersen versus Guilherme Pat, another slop fest. This is a terrible fight. I don't mean to be so critical on this card, man, but we got to call it what it is. This is slop. This is slop, and a lot of this just feels like filler, man. We got some good fights, but this is this is a terrible fight. And sure, it could be entertaining, but entertaining in what way? By two guys that are just, you got a blobbing Petersen who's got some wrestling, who's got sporadic ooga-booga striking, who comes charging into range like he's, Superman fully extended. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? Get you a better striking coach, learn some technique. And then we got Guilherme Pat, to where when you look at him, 6'5", 81-inch reach. Wow. Guy looks like he lifts some weights, man. He's in great shape. He's got a look to him. Hey, you look at Guilherme Pat, and you're like, hey, man, we got something here. And you watch maybe some highlights, and you're like, ooh, sticking and moving, swanging and banging. Pause. But then you actually watch his fight, and you're like, this dude has got to be one of the laziest fighters I've ever seen in my life. This guy gets into the octagon, and it's just, that's my description, lazy. Yes, technical. Yes, looks like a great athlete and should be a killer, but he's not. He isn't. He's got some technical striking. He should have been able to stop Alan Fry Jr., who seems like a great guy. He's very tough, man. Is just nowhere near UFC caliber. And I don't think Guilherme Pat is either. Right? And he's getting these wins over who? Who are these guys? Taxi cab drivers. And he's getting these wins. And yeah, sure, he dances around on the outside and it looks real pretty. And he'll set up a shot here and there. So is he the better striker? Technically, sure, he is. And man, he can land a shot here and there. And maybe he comes out with some urgency and isn't as lazy in this fight. I'm not picking what I have seen from Guilherme Pat thus far. I would rather pick Peter Griffin. Yeah, I'd rather pick Peter Griffin to win this fight than Guilherme Pat, dog. Yeah, I'm picking Peter Griffin to get this thing done. I think he's going to come out with some of that Family Guy style of just Looney Tunes-esque striking, and he's just going to outwork Guilherme Pat in this fight. A guy that gets held along the octagon side with literally zero urgency. It's so bothered to have to shuck someone off the octagon side. So bothered to have to throw more than one strike per minute is the vibe that I get from Guilherme Pat. And sure, maybe he's the guy with more upside. Maybe he goes out here and actually balls out in this performance and looks good. But I'm picking Thomas Petersen because I've at least seen something slightly more. Now, getting outstruck by Jamal Pogues, to be fair, I think Jamal Pogues beats Guilherme Pat, beat Mo Usman. I'm picking Mo Usman to beat Guilherme Pat. Shamil Gaziev, Goatziev knocks out Guilherme Pat in a round. Dontel Mays. I don't know. The fact that I have to think about who's going to win between Dontel Mays and Guilherme Pat tells me everything I need to know. And then Vitor Petrino made it to the third round, I think, against Vitor Petrino, who would easily beat Guilherme Pat, in my opinion. I'm picking Peter Griffin. Yeah, I think he gets this one done with ease, even though, Guilherme Pat's got the stature, the look. A lot of it is you see the cover, but the cover doesn't match what's on the inside. That's kind of what I look at with Guilherme Pat. He's in great shape, looks like he's this savage, and he's got this point style of striking where it looks real technical, doesn't have enough output, has some power, but not devastating one-shot starching power. Watch him in this fight actually display that. I'm going Thomas Petersen. His wrestling is good. We've seen Guilherme Pat not really go up against a solid grappler. Petersen has output at least. I could see him pushing Pat up against the octagon side and literally just kind of winning minutes that way. I just see more paths where Petersen can get this done because even if Pat is landing the better shots, doesn't have a ton of output, I'm going Petersen to get this one done. I worry a little bit about his durability, and I don't think his striking is good. And he charges in with his head down, leaving a ton of openings, but I just think he'll be busier and find a way to just kind of outwork Guilherme Pat. And if he puts Pat on his back on the ground, Petersen's got some solid ground and pound, and he can soften him up and maybe even find a way to get him out of there. But I'm going Peter Griffin by slopfest over Guilherme Pat. Maybe Pat finally, shows some urgency in a fight, and then I'll be like, oh, I was wrong. But either way, this is a disgusting fight. Either way, man. This is a bad fight. I'm sorry. It just is. I'm going Thomas Petersen, though. I'm seeing a little bit more from him. All right, we got Jose Delano versus Robert Ruchala. Finally a good fight. Jose Delano, on the Contender Series this past year, beat the heck out of Manuel Exposito. And normally when a fighter wins on the Contender Series, the ones that kind of get all the hype and the glaze are the ones that get the finishes, which rightfully so, because on the Contender Series, that's kind of what the show's almost built around, is going in there, finding finishes, making a statement, all those kinds of things. But then there's performances to where you're not winning by decision, like, oh, woo, that was a close one. You didn't do much. You won, whatever. Then there's masterclass performances to where I see poise, I see composure, I see high fight IQ, and I see all of the intangibles that require you to be a good fighter in the UFC, and that's exactly what I saw from Jose Delano, a guy that is incredibly seasoned and skilled on the feet, can mix up the stances, excellent boxing, really good kicks, very, very good footwork, very good movement, and is not an easy guy to hit clean. And what he was able to do to Exposito, man, this was a demolition, a just destruction. And I thought he was going to get the finish in this fight at one point and multiple points. I mean, he was beating the heck out of Manuel Exposito, man. And this was a guy that was in LFA rattling off some good wins. And this loss 3 years ago was to Gabriel Santos, who I think might even be the most underrated fighter in the UFC, if not one of them. Right? I thought he beat Lerone Murphy, to be honest with you. That was a close fight against Lerone, but I thought he won that fight. So you lose to a guy who I think could be at the top of the division at some point. And then that was a few years ago, and you go on a nice win streak, and you go on Dana White's Contender Series, and you absolutely ball out. And, this isn't an easy fight, though, because Robert Ruchala is a guy that, was coming over from KSW, has a loss to Parnasse, who's fighting on that upcoming Netflix card, who's a super fun fighter to watch, very, very dangerous. So that's actually not a bad loss, but we've seen he's dangerous. Most recently lost to William Gomez, and I just have some questions about Robert's grappling. I got some questions in terms of, yes, he's powerful on the feet, and I know his ground game is kind of relentless, and he's got some solid wrestling and stuff. I just don't think he has enough to be able to beat a guy like Jose Delano. I'm going Delano by decision. Could he stop Robert in this fight? I mean, that'd be dang impressive. Definitely a possibility, but I'm going to side with a decision here. I think his output, he's, in my opinion, a much higher level striker. His footwork is good. His ground game is good. I think his takedown defense will be on point, and he will out-damage and pick apart Robert Ruchala and put on a great performance in the debut here. I think Jose Delano is for real, man. I was very impressed. Even though he didn't get a finish on the Contender Series, in a way, yes, the finish is great, and it's the highlight. I get it. But going out there and getting those minutes and literally beating a guy pillar to post and displaying your full skill set was also a way to know a lot more about this guy than if he went out there and just starched, who was it again? Manuel Exposito. If he starched him in a minute, it'd be like, maybe we got some questions here. I saw everything, even saw that on the tape from LFA prior. Got to watch the body shot, right? Santos was able to take advantage of that a little bit, but I don't think Ruchala is a guy to be able to necessarily do that in this fight. But I do think Robert is slightly underrated. I think he's dangerous, he's game, but I'm going Delano. I just think that there's a level difference here. I think he picks him apart, and I think Delano is going to be in the rankings sooner rather than later in the featherweight division, dudes, for real. Next, we got Tommy McMillen versus Manolo Zecchini. And Zecchini, not maybe I will. Zucchini. Sorry, man. Zecchini. Manolo Zecchini. This literally is a softball matchup for Tommy McMillen. And dare I say that this is a much easier fight than the one that he had on the Contender Series. So I think Tommy McMillen is going to win this fight, and he should dominate this fight. Anything less than total domination is a massive disappointment from Tommy McMillen. And the pressure is on, by the way, right? He's Sean O'Malley's teammate, so he had this hype coming on in the Contender Series. But to be fair, Tommy McMillen's actually kind of good. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be like a top featherweight or anything. The minute he fights legit opposition, I think that this is a guy that we might be fading, right? We'll have to see kind of how he develops because he's still only 28, well-coached, with Tim Welch and those guys over there. His striking is solid. He's got good offense. Defense, not so much, right? Got a little bit of a reach advantage, height advantage in this fight. Good front kicks, solid boxing, right? Long-ranging combinations. His wrestling is really good, and his ground game is really good. That's really his bread and butter, is you kind of see the flash on the feet in moments, but it's really his ground game is really good. Solid wrestling, good submission skills. I think he's going to hurt Zecchini, Manolo on the feet, and then he's going to be able to submit him. So I'm going to say I played with the idea of a KO, but I'm going to say round 1 submission. And honestly, that is the expectation in this fight. Anything less than this to me is a massive disappointment. I mean, Manolo has not fought in almost in 2.5 years, and he got starched by Morgan Charrier, who, to be fair, is okay. Pretty decent fighter. So, dangerous striker. I think Morgan Charrier might be even more dangerous than Tommy on the feet, but Tommy's ground game is actually kind of good, man. We saw him in all kinds of trouble in this fight. We saw him battle through adversity. We saw how good his ground game is. We've seen that. He's able to hurt guys, hop on a submission, able to rock them on the feet. I think he gets a club and sub here in round number 1. This is a softball matchup meant for him to look good and get a highlight. Anything less than domination, to me, is a disappointment for Tommy McMillen. Him going the distance here, in my opinion, is a loss in my eyes for how much of a softball matchup this is. In my opinion, from what I've seen, I think Manolo's got some skills, decent striking, decent ground game. Tommy McMillen is basically better than him everywhere, and he should get this one done, especially with the hype that we are getting. And the UFC is going to push this guy, Tommy McMillen. But it's going to be one of those cases of the skill doesn't necessarily match the hype is eventually where I think we are going to end up with Tommy McMillen. But for now, I like what I've seen. He's tough. He's gritty. Solid overall game. Think he outstrikes him on the feet, stings him, gets it to the ground. His ground game's really good, and he's just able to submit him with rather ease. Give me Tommy Gunn here. Next, we got Ethyn Ewing versus Rafael Esteban. Now, this to me, I think, was the hardest time I've had picking a fight on this card. Because Rafael Esteban was actually a guy that I was kind of high on in the flyweight division. But now he's coming up to 135 pounds, and a lot of that is because this dude could not make weight. So people want to glaze Rafael Esteban. One, he's not very entertaining to watch. Beat Charles Johnson, which is a solid victory. Did very well the first 2 rounds. Johnson put it on him in the third because he tends to slow down. Jesus Aguilar overwhelmed him with the ground skills. Did the same thing to Felipe Boons, who is okay on the feet, but really pretty much just a guy that's going to look to play the jiu-jitsu game. So, missing weight, having an advantage by not draining himself all the way down for the weight cut. He's 5'8", 69-inch reach, and to be fair, he's undefeated for a reason. He's got pressure, pace. He's got a well-rounded ground game to where his jiu-jitsu is good. His wrestling is solid, and he just chains things together really, really well, and he's a pest to deal with. He doesn't stop moving forward, and he doesn't stop shooting takedowns. And his striking is, I don't think it's great, but it's okay. It's serviceable, especially to kind of, mold together with his style, which is literally just pressure you, get a hold of you, and shoot takedown after takedown, get to your back, get the body triangle locked in, get to a top position, be able to control you and neutralize you. But in a lot of these fights, we haven't seen a ton of ground and pound from Esteban. We kind of saw that on the regional scene in LFA. We saw it on DWCS, but in these fights, to be fair, these are decent fighters that he's facing, especially Charles Johnson. That's a very good win. But I feel like in this fight, man, Ethyn Ewing's one of these guys that's got all this hype right now to where maybe, I feel like it's warranted, right? He was being overlooked. He was a huge dog, I think, coming in, right? Took it on short notice against Malcolm Wellmaker, who's got missiles in his hands, man. Malcolm Wellmaker, got exposed a little bit for not being a tactician, depending upon, these big winging hooks with all the power. But Wellmaker's really good, man. Like, he's a good striker. And for Ewing to take that on, I think that was rather short notice. And the cardio looks solid, right? I think he literally competed shortly before that. So he's basically coming off of a nice victory. Literally, yeah, I think it was like a week turnaround or something where he got taken down by Billy Brand, I think once or twice, was able to get back up, and then was able to starch him on the feet. Ethyn Ewing, since dropping those couple fights, man, early in his career, he's been on a hot streak. And this dude on the feet is head and shoulders above Rafael Esteban. I have no doubt about that. So it's the question of, can Ewing stuff the takedowns? And if he does get taken down, which I imagine he will, can he get back to his feet safely without getting submitted, without getting controlled, and basically just dominated on the deck? I'm going to say that Ethyn Ewing has some answers here. I really liked his corner work against Malcolm Wellmaker. That coach, man, I really liked him a lot. He was screaming at the top of his lungs. And you're in I think that was MSG, right? You could hear, you had no problem hearing that dude, man. He was screaming, and Ethyn Ewing, just like a controller was hooked up from his coach, he was listening to every ounce of instruction from his corner, which I like a lot. That's a high IQ fighter. That's a guy that's not caught up in the moment of, oh my God, my debut, I'm fighting Wellmaker. Oh no, like he's hearing his coaches. He's very methodical on the feet, fights behind the jab. I think he comes out and looks kind of like what we saw Adrian Yanez against Ricky Simon, which was a brutal robbery, by the way. I picked Yanez to win the fight, and I thought he won the fight. But not the same kind of matchup, but almost kind of similar for my reasoning, is Estevam, if he gets the fight to the ground and is able to kind of dictate the pace and play his game, he'll I think, dominate Ewing and win the fight. But I think Ewing will pop the jab, stick him with the jab, bust up the nose, swell the lips, affect the breathing, affect the rhythm and the timing of Estevam. Every time he steps in, boom, he's going to tag him with a jab. Straight right hand down the middle, and he's going to time those entries to really kind of discourage Estevam a little bit. And yes, you could say, oh, lighter man skill coming up to bantamweight. But this is a dude that was really not even making flyweight. So he was kind of in my eyes, in a way, he was a bantamweight fighting at flyweight, missing the weight. So he's had cardio problems when he gets into the third round. If he slows down at any moment in this fight, which I think he's going to, Ethyn Ewing is going to be on this dude's rear end, man, and I think he will put him away. I am going Ethyn Ewing by a round 3 KO. Now, of course, there's the chance that Rafael goes out here, imposes his game and his style, and just dominates Ethyn Ewing, and we're just looking too much into the hype of Ethyn. But I went back and watched some of those extra regional fights preparing to predict this one, and the dude's good, man. And we've seen, yes, he has not fought a grappler of this caliber, but I also think that Ewing striking, especially the boxing, is better than anyone that Estevam has fought. So give me Ethyn Ewing. Got solid wrestling, solid takedown defense. He's got a full camp to prepare, but I don't really understand this matchmaking. A guy that pulls off a massive upset, has this super exciting style, and you're going to stick him in the apex against a guy who's just going to look to take him down and hold him down the whole time. I don't get it, man. Again, UFC, some of their finest matchmaking on display here, but I will side with Ethyn Ewing to get this one done. Now, maybe wins a decision based on damage, but from what we've seen from Estevam, this is a guy that will slow down later in the fights, and if he does it in this fight, Ethyn Ewing will not let him off the hook, and he will put him away with the striking and get him out of there. But like I said, if Estevam incorporates his game and Ewing's ground game is, his grappling is zero, he'll get dominated on the mats. I think he has success early, and I think we see Ethyn figure out some answers and find a way to tag this dude up on the feet and get him out of there. I don't like dudes that are fighting in a weight class, can't even make the weight, and are picking up these wins. Essentially, you're almost in a sense cheating in a way. I don't respect that at all whatsoever. It happened multiple times. Inevitable that he moved up. And I don't think, again, fighting a bigger guy and Ewing here who is a bantamweight. So, I don't know. Estevam's got a solid frame. It's a tricky fight, I think, to call. This is one I've went back and forth on. I'm going to side with the better striker and a guy that I think is a ton of fun and I like a lot and I'm high on in Ethyn Ewing. So, I think he gets it done over Estevam via damage. Estevam will slow down later. Ewing doesn't let him off the hook like a shark smelling blood in the water, gets him out of there. Abdul Rakhman, Yakhyaev versus Brandonson Ribeiro. Now, it'd be interesting to know what you guys think. Do you think that Brandonson Ribeiro has much of a shot in this fight? Because I think that he has almost next to no shot of winning this fight outside of a fluky shot landing. I know that Brandonson Ribeiro at one time we were like, whoa, man, he's came into the UFC and picked up a win and then picked up another one and was able to submit Diar Nurgaje, who got a nice win over, Rafael Tobias, who's a complete fraud. But got starched by Azamat Murzakanov, but to be fair, we know how good Azamat is. Got finished by Umar Sy, and we're seeing what kind of a fraud he is in a way as well. And then I'm looking at Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev, who I've been saying is one of the prospects to watch in all of the UFC. This dude is one of the most entertaining guys on the rise. This dude doesn't know a decision. I mean, he hasn't had a decision in 3 years. This is a guy that goes out here, is ferocious on the feet, nasty striking, really, really, really good timing and power, but then also has a nasty ground game. So picking Abdul Rakhman here is, I feel like, the easiest pick on the entire card probably, but picking how he is going to win is always tricky because I said that about this last fight against Rafael Sicarieta. I was like, Rafael is going to get ran over in a matter of probably seconds. But how does Abdul win the fight? That is really the prediction here because he's gotten a lot of submissions, right? On DWCS, he did get the stoppage, which I feel like, TKO, which I think he was kind of playing into that because he was on the Contender Series, but we've seen a lot of these are by submission if he wins. So maybe he clubs and subs Brandonson Ribeiro. We've seen Ribeiro, he's got a solid reach. He's going to have a slight reach advantage here by a couple inches. He's rangy, does have some explosiveness, so Abdul's got to be careful. But I think Yakhyaev is going to land a big shot on him, get him down, and he's just going to pound on him with some ground and pound and be able to get him out of there. TKO stoppage. I feel like he's not necessarily going to try to play into any kind of grappling game. I think he hurts him, follows him to the floor, lands some shots. The referee has to step in and stop him because we've seen that Ribeiro's jiu-jitsu solid. His ground game is okay, at least defensively as well. So maybe Abdul, like I said, toughest part here is, in my opinion, is predicting how he is going to win. I think it's a finish inside the first round regardless, but, you know, he could club and sub him, but we've seen that Ribeiro, not the easiest guy to submit, so I'm going to say that Yakhyaev kind of errs on the side of getting into any grappling entanglements, hurts him bad on the feet, and then follows him to the ground and just puts him away with the strikes and gets him out of there. So you never know, I guess, to a degree with Brenson on the feet, if this plays out on the feet, because Ribeiro does have some power. He's got the range, can be explosive. But I don't know, man. I don't want to sound like I'm completely overlooking him, but in a way I kind of am, because I do think that Abdul is really good, man. He's super dangerous, incredibly well-rounded, better than Brenson Ribeiro everywhere. And I think he gets this thing done inside the first I'd say even the first 2 minutes of this fight. I think he easily makes work of Brendan Ribeiro. Rakhman, very, very good fighter. Next, we have our co-main event of the evening. We have Virna Jandiroba versus Tabitha Ricci. Now, this is one that I've actually struggled to predict a little bit as well. Now, the reason that I say that, you might go, whoa, man. Tabitha Ricci, kind of an industry plant. Virna Jandiroba fought the better competition. Virna Jandiroba is almost 38 years of age, and I'm thinking on the side of, I believe that Jandiroba in this fight, if you get my drift, you get my drift on what I'm going to say. I think Jandiroba is going to have to make it so obvious to where she literally dang near 10-8s Tabitha Ricci in at least a round or two in this fight. It's going to have to be that dominant, I think, for her to win this fight. If you know, you know. I feel like Tabitha Ricci's got the real push going on from the UFC. And we have seen in some of these fights where I thought that she has lost, against Tisha Pennington, against Angela Hill, and some of these fights that were really close, that she just gets the swing. And a lot of it, I feel like, to a degree, right? She's getting some push, but also she's active on the feet. Her ground game is pretty solid. Now, granted, she has not fought someone as good of a grappler, I would say, throughout her career as Virna Jandiroba. And the losses that Ricci has had are to Lupi Godinez, who's got decent striking, Yan Xiaonan, who's a very good striker, and then did get, I think, stopped by Manon Fiorot, who's an absolute monster. So, she's losing to strikers. And Virna Jandiroba is not a good striker. She's getting older. She's sloppy on the feet, to where I think if this plays out on the feet, I think Tabitha Ricci keeps it competitive to where she can have moments, and the judges will be swayed by that. They'll be swayed by some of the bigger moments. And then when it comes to the grappling, I think Jandiroba is the better MMA grappler. And I think she's probably the better overall grappler straight up. But I'm wondering if Jandiroba is not able to keep her down for long periods of time. I can see Tabitha Ricci, they get into the clinch. Ricci's just kind of landing a few little pitter-patter shots. She's kind of throwing spammy shots from range and just finds a way to win a decision here, man. And I don't think that Ricci's necessarily the better fighter. I think she's made some improvements. But beating Marina Rodriguez by decision, Lupi Godinez, Amanda Lemos via armbar, beat Yan Xiaonan again. Well, stylistically, Yan Xiaonan, Yan Xiaonan was able to beat Tabitha Ricci, but it's matchups. Tabitha Ricci's not as good of an offensive MMA grappler as Virna Jandiroba, but defensively, we saw Ribas put Ricci on her back, and Ricci was able to get up. So I know levels, to a degree, but I'm pretty sure didn't Ribas beat Virna Jandiroba a few years ago? And I picked Mackenzie Dern to beat Virna Jandiroba for a similar reason that I'm going to pick Tabitha Ricci to win this fight. I think that Mackenzie Dern better than Tabitha Ricci, but she's spammy on the feet with the striking, has decent enough takedown defense, and enough of kind of a ground game, especially Dern. Dern's way better on the ground than Ricci, especially with the offensive submission skills. But I think Ricci's ground game is solid enough to get some space and be able to kind of out-volume and land some of the bigger moments on the feet over Virna Jandiroba and win a split decision 29-28 over Virna Jandiroba, man. I straight up, if we didn't see whack judging whatsoever, I would probably pick Virna Jandiroba to win this fight, and I think that she is the better overall grappler. I think on the feet she's not particularly great. Okay leg kicks, a little sloppy with the striking. I don't think Ricci's that great, but I do think, to be fair, she has improved a little bit. I think her striking's gotten a little bit better. I think that stylistically, if Ricci is ever going to beat a top opponent in this weight class, it would be someone like Virna Jandiroba, right? She was able to didn't she beat Jillian Robertson as well? So that's kind of a similar style to a Virna Jandiroba, even though Jandiroba is much better and Robertson's gotten a lot better. I don't know, man. I feel like that this is kind of an even fight. I think it's an even fight. I think Jandiroba is a better grappler. I think on the feet, Ricci will have more output. She gets hit a lot, but she's very durable as well. We've seen that. Jandiroba is not nearly as dangerous as these other strikers that Ricci is in there with. I think that this is one of those situations, styles make fights. Ricci's ground game may be good enough to deal with Jandiroba, land enough on the feet in terms of the moments, and sway the judges to get it done. Another close decision victory for Tabatha Ricci. She's marketable. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying if it's close, I think it's going to Tabatha Ricci. I feel like that's something that you need to account for in this fight. In my opinion, that's the way that I'm kind of looking at this, even though I think that Jandiroba is probably a little bit better. So I'll side with Ricci here, if that makes any sense. Main event, we got Renato Moicano versus Chris Duncan. Now, originally, I was kind of thinking that Renato Moicano is the pick in this fight because he's fought the better opposition. I mean, you look at his past 5 fights. I mean, he's in there with Drew Dober. He's in there with Jalen Turner, but to be fair, Jalen Turner should have had the KO here. Tried to get the walk-off KO. You know, these two are cockroaches. You got to put them away, man. And if you don't put them away and you leave any sign of life, they're going to come back and find a way to haunt you, right? Very impressive performance against BSD, but I feel like if you run that back, BSD might mow Moicano over. Right, and BSD never really allowed himself to get into the groove of the fight. But to be fair, Moicano looked really good in this fight. Landed some good shots on the feet. You know, I think caught the kick to the body, took him down, butchered BSD on the ground with some nasty ground and pound. Then goes out there against Islam Makhachev, gets destroyed. But I mean, he should have never have gotten the title shot to begin with. And we know that Arman, he fell off the card. So then in steps Moicano, got absolutely destroyed by Islam. But again, that's Islam. And then, I faded him against Darrius because I said Darrius is the better grappler, and on the feet, Moicano's not that dangerous. Now, he was able to drop Darrius early, but we know Darrius is basically washed and his chin is gone. Moicano doesn't have power, man. He doesn't have a lot of power. Now, I will say this. I think he's the more technical striker, so to speak, than Duncan, and I think he's the more polished and technical guy overall here. But I think that this is a matter of Chris Duncan is this dude that I don't want to say it's been kind of fluky, but in a way it's been kind of fluky, man. Right? I know he got submitted by Manuel Torres. We saw in the Contender Series against Charlie Campbell, nasty knockout, right? Balagioki it seemed like he was in some trouble. Then was able to find the guillotine, right? Balagioki put his head on the outside. Duncan's got a nasty guillotine. Submitted Jordan Vucenic, a hyped up guy who didn't pan out in the UFC, but again, in some trouble on the feet to a degree, finds a submission. Mateusz Rąbecki, absolute war, who I think is a better overall striker, at least in terms of the danger factor, than Moicano. And then most recently, surviving the storm of Terrence McKinney, who's incredibly dangerous for the first couple of minutes, and was able to weather it, battled through the adversity, and was able to get him out of there. And Terrence McKinney, during that couple of minutes, is more dangerous than Moicano is overall, especially with the striking. So the way that I look at this fight, the gas tanks, I think, are pretty even. In terms of the power, that goes to Duncan. In terms of the technical grappling, it goes to Moicano. In terms of the durability, it goes to Duncan. So to me, there are just more pluses at this point in their careers on the side of Chris Duncan to get this one done over Renato Moicano. So my early lean was thinking Moicano, and I think that this is actually a very competitive fight. So people that think Moicano's just going to run away with it, people that think Duncan's going to run away with it, I don't know that that's the case. I think that this is actually, I don't think that this should be a main event, but this is actually a fun fight. Moicano's been kind of quiet leading up to this fight. He's got the YouTube going on, which is booming. He's got a gym. He's got all sorts of stuff going on, man. He's kind of made it in a sense, even though he's never going to be a champion and stuff. He's fought the better opposition. He's got some good wins. He's had some bad losses. We've seen him KO'd before. I think this is one of those scenarios to where he might land some okay shots and be able to catch Duncan a little bit. Not going to put him away because Duncan is very hittable, so it's not out of the norm for him to eat some shots. But I think that Moicano will have some early success with the grappling, but if he doesn't finish Duncan on the ground with a submission or butcher him so bad with ground and pound where there's a stoppage, or he has him so busted up like what he did to BSD that he's going to come out in the next couple rounds and Moicano can just kind of pick at the cuts and pick at the damage and find a way to get it done. I think that Chris Duncan is going to turn this into his more nuanced version of a brawl. This guy's kind of a brawler, man, but he does have some technical things that he does in there. And I think that eventually He is going to get to Renato Moicano with the pressure, with the output. And we've seen in that absolute war that he had with Rombetsky, man, if you can go toe-to-toe with him and find a way, like that's worth a lot to me, man, because Rebecki is dangerous. And again, these guys are familiar with each other, right? America top team. They have that familiarity there. They know each other's styles real well. I got to go with Duncan in this fight, though. I think the power is on his side. I think the momentum is on his side. And kind of fluky in a way, the reason I'm saying it is because he's been in trouble in a lot of these fights. But that's kind of the story of his fights. He's in trouble, finds a way to weather the storm. And I wouldn't even put it past him to where, even though Moicano is probably the better overall grappler, if you get stung with a big shot and you're a little fatigued, you're beaten up, and you shoot a panic takedown, your head's out on the hip, or, you're trying to shake off the cobwebs, I could see Chris Duncan locking in a submission because we've seen his ground game is no slouch either, right? He's got the nasty guillotine, but the anaconda against Terrence McKinney, well-versed on the ground, training with, I think, Grant Dawson, guys like that are very, very good offensive grapplers. I think Chris Duncan, I think this is his time, man. 32 years of age. He's been putting in some good work. Moicano, I think he's going to come in ready to rock and roll for this fight because he's at that crossroads point where if you lose this one to Duncan, this is a massive blow kind of to the career and the trajectory for Moicano. And I think Moicano is a guy that, I think he's decently skilled, but he's been massively overrated over the past few years, given that he's funny. And let me tell you something, my brother, right? He's funny, his podcast with Gilbert Burns and all that kind of stuff and getting on the microphone and really did a good job marketing himself there and that way getting people to kind of tune in and all that kind of stuff. But I think Chris Duncan is a guy that he's not worrying about all that. He's showing up, putting on bangers. He's dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. I think he's the more dangerous fighter here. He's going to come in very prepared and motivated. I don't think that this is that much of a big deal to Moicano because he's been around for a while. This is a huge deal for Duncan to come out here and put on a Dunkin' Donuts type of performance, to come out here and build off the name of Renato Moicano. So give me Chris Duncan to get this one done over Moicano. But like I said, I think if Duncan doesn't have answers for the grappling of Moicano and he plays, he's on bottom and stuck there, Moicano could beat him up a ground and pound, possibly find a submission, maybe even get to the back and find a way to stop Chris Duncan with a submission. But I'm going to side with Duncan, man. I think he's the guy with the momentum, more dangerous. His ground game, I think, is good enough to deal with Moicano, what he brings to the table. And while Moicano is maybe the more polished guy on the feet to a degree, technical straight punches, I don't think that he has the power to really trouble Duncan, a guy who's been eating big shots from much heavier hitters. Like Oki, Vucenich's even a better overall striker, I'd say, than Moicano, even though it didn't work out in the UFC. Vucenich's a pretty good striker, man. Rebecki, way more dangerous on the feet. I think, and McKinney especially, he's been fighting harder hitters, more dangerous guys on the feet. I just think Moicano probably has the better overall ground game out of the guys that he has competed with so far. I think Duncan has the answers. Momentum's on his side. Power's on his side. I think that you're going to see Moicano slow down. Duncan's going to land. He's got good elbows, good knees. He's got that brawling style. He's just a savage, especially with the hands. So mix in the kicks as well, that head kick that he's got, leg kicks as well. Kind of make Moicano more of a sitting duck. We'll see Renato slow down, and then Duncan will start to beat him up along the octagon side with some of the power shots. He'll rock him with a right hand, elbow. Moicano will go down. And then Duncan will follow up with some ground and pound. The referee will have to step in and stop the fight. That's how I see this one playing out. So if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you agree with my thoughts on this card overall? Do you agree with my predictions, or what are your predictions for this fight? And if you are new, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I took a look at the analytics, man, and there's a lot of y'all that are not subscribed. It's dirty, man. Subscribe, help your boy out. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time.